I'm all by my lonesome with you, and we're going to chop it up with presidential politics. We have a new entrant with Amy Klobuchar, Minnesota senator, and another member of the Senate Judiciary Committee who joins Kamala Harris and Cory Booker as fellow senators and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to throw their hat in the ring to try to earn the Democratic nomination for President of the United States to run against Trump. Now, Klobuchar really, I think, came on the national stage during the Kavanaugh hearings where, given the hysteria and we'll kindly call it zaniness of some of the Democrat colleagues on the committee, showed herself to be a calm head, relatively speaking. And so an adult in the room, if you will. But at the same time, she did not seem to have the force of personality that I think that a lot of us think of when we think of an executive leader. Even for people who we might dislike. I think that Hillary Clinton, for instance, has that executive leader personality, and somebody who I wish would not be president of the United States. But let's hear from Senator Klobuchar in her own words about how we should take her candidacy. She sat down with Rachel Maddow, and Rachel was discussing whether or not she should be seen as a moderate. Here's what Amy has to say about that.
Is that because you have run as a moderate? Should people who are just learning about you for the first time see you, as a lot of press is describing you today, as a more moderate or more centrist Democrat in this field?
I think they should see me as a progressive because I believe in progress, and I have worked toward progress my whole life.
So if you're a person who believes in progress, it looks like there you have your candidate. Although, prior to her announcement, her formal announcement as a presidential candidate, there were some accounts in the press about Klobuchar and her treatment towards office staffers. We mentioned on the Uprising, I think it was last week, that there were a number of stories published last week about how she berated staffers and humiliated them in front of others. Now, there's two problems with this course of conduct. And, well, more importantly, the reporting of it. One is the Democrat candidate needs to run as an anti-Trump. And part of that is not just allowing unlimited immigration, I guess, but it's also about being a different kind of person. Trump has been vilified secondarily for his policies, but primarily for his manner of being. So if you are somebody who treats people interpersonally even way worse than Trump does, that seems to be a problematic path towards the nomination. The second thing is Klobuchar has sort of banked on this Midwestern nice persona. And obviously, if you're horribly mean to the people who work for you, that might present some backlash to that presentment of your visage to the public who you wish to vote for you. Now, this Amy Klobuchar staff problem is not some nit that's been picked by the people at Breitbart or some other conservative trying to make hay where there is none. Rachel Maddow felt compelled to address the claim when she had Klobuchar on, and Bill Maher on his show did some work to try to rehabilitate all the candidates, and Klobuchar especially. Here's how that went. And for the record, I did pull some of the applause.
And finally, new rule, no more swiping left on perfectly good presidential candidates. Nearly 45 million Americans now identify themselves as Democrats, and all of them are running for president. This time, let's give them a chance. Let's not eat our own, the way we nitpicked Hillary to death over her emails and other bullshit.
Yeah, the emails and the other BS, for those of us who have been paying attention, were the concealing of over 30,000 emails in violation of the Federal Records Act And the reason why that act is in place is that we can examine what the people are doing on our dime with our money. And in Hillary Clinton's case, as Secretary of State, we're talking about starting wars here. This all came about as a result of the Benghazi investigation and Hillary's attempt to do her business, her public business, in private, which is a violation of the law. Unlike what we have in the case of, for instance, Donald Trump, whose now private dealings are being investigated by his public political enemies, like, for instance, Mr. Schiff, a congressman from California who is examining Mr. Trump's loan records from at least a decade ago. And that's being posed as a legitimate investigation, but Hillary Clinton's work, for instance, as Secretary of State is not somehow in the minds of the leftist giant and thought leader, Bill Maher. Maher had good things to say and defend the candidacies of both Warren and Bernie Sanders, and then he decided to give Klobuchar a boost about these staff stories.
A candidate has to have tough standards for their staff, but not too tough. That's Amy Klobuchar. Oh, yeah. Yeah, last week we learned she's verbally abusive. Then again, this came from the Huffington Post, so I got to ask, do you mean actually abusive or what millennials think of as abusive? Because I think it's like the pain chart in the hospital, and I think my generation's 2 is your generation's 10. So welcome to the real world, Snowflake. Now go get Amy her coffee and shut up.
Now, I am perhaps even more attracted to the takedown of a snowflake than the average bear. So I do appreciate that. But I think that in Ms. Klobuchar's case, in Senator Klobuchar's case, we have a different animal here. And I really do think that her candidacy is dead on arrival because of it. The allegations against her get worse. We're not talking about getting coffee, for instance. We're talking about some of the worst of it is she would send her staffer who made a mistake to the office of another congressperson. That's not something that you're going to soon forget. So the motivation for coming out with these bad boss stories is only going to get more. There's more currency with them. The current stories indicate that people are scared to come out and name names because they are still worried about Klobuchar screwing with them. They say that when people would try to leave the office, she would often call their bosses for their new jobs and try to get them unhired. And really, she's the un-Trump, the non-Trump? I don't know. There aren't too many interpersonal stories about Donald Trump treating other human beings badly. I guess if you want to count at the remove of Twitter, there's more material than you can shake a stick at. But show me the human being that worked for Donald Trump who said that he treated them not like a human being. This is another example, I think, of to seem rather than to be. Does it matter that Trump actually treats the human beings that are around him in a manner that is respectful and nice? And that Klobuchar does not? But on Twitter, they appear differently, I guess.